On Newsnight tonight, President Akufo-Addo declares government is taking emergency measures to procure childhood vaccines, but falls short of specifying when the vaccines will arrive after months of nationwide shortage.
Government is taking steps to ensure the stocks of these vaccines are procured and supplied as a matter of urgency and emergency.
Plus, the president has been fighting back, dismissing claims COVID-19 funds were misused.
That it is important to show clearly that the COVID-19 funds were not misused. It is critical that we do not lose the confidence of the people that a crisis that they were led to believe we were all in together was abused for personal gain.
Also tonight, push for Chief of Defense Staff to be held responsible for military rampage in Ashaiman as Defense Ministry apologizes for the brutalities.
We want to apologize for that. That, of course, we will apologize. But, my brother, we are not going to apologize for the operations.
The appointor would have to sit the CDS down. If there are some sanctions, those sanctions must apply.
Plus, we'll hear from the family of the slain soldier.
You know the suffering we suffer for this boy before he entered the army. Then just took some few hours to finish the boy for us.
I am told he kept shouting that he is not a thief, but they didn't leave him alone, and no one helped him.
Also tonight, the NDC directive to its MPs that is causing a stir in Parliament as the NDC MPs endorse the party's directive, asking them not to absent themselves from Parliament as they ready themselves for a crucial time in the House.
And the minority in Parliament remains the last hope in that bastion of democracy. And so we are going to sacrifice our campaigns.
And mark my words, we are saying any means in this chamber to make sure that nothing obnoxious will be allowed to pass through the House.
Business government targets submission of Ghana's program request for IMF board approval by end of this month. But there's this a change in timelines.
We'll have business for you later here on Newsnight. Also tonight, Accra Metropolitan Assembly says it is worried more households are without functional toilet facilities nearly 6 years after it made it compulsory.
Then to interest you for you to know that in 2022 it reduces from 89% to 77%. What happened? Is it that some people have turned their toilet facilities into a living room for rent, or what? That is what we want to find out.
And for those who are contemplating constructing their own toilet facilities, the AMA has some numbers for you to crunch on.
So if you have 5 children in your house, including you 6, and a day everybody goes to toilet 1 cedi 50, spending about 40 cedis, 50 cedis a day.
05511119997. Let me hear your own state of the nation. Did the president meet your expectation? Did what he said today reflect your personal reality? 05511119997. And one of the things that the president has been talking about today has been a major crisis in the making for months. The nationwide shortage of childhood vaccines that has put many babies at the risk of contracting many of these childhood killer diseases. Well, the president today, after we heard from the health minister yesterday, who was unable to give a specific timeline when the vaccines will arrive, addressing the parliamentarians on the floor today as he met that constitutional obligation to deliver a state of the nation, the president declared government is now taking emergency measures to procure the vaccines, but again fell short of specifying when the vaccines will arrive.
Zipline, through the national scale drone delivery services, has delivered some 14.8 million units of life-saving medicals, vaccines, and blood products to health facilities in Ghana by the end of 2022. Childhood vaccines top the list with the delivery of 8.3 million doses, followed by 2.05 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Mr. Speaker, I must say, however, that the current shortage of some childhood vaccines in the country has concerned me greatly. This shortage, if prolonged, will affect negatively Ghana's childhood immunization program, which has been recognized as one of the most successful in the world. The WHO has only recently expressed worry about a steady decline in measles vaccination coverage globally because of the concentration on the fight against COVID-19. In accordance with our desire not to become part of this global trend, government has taken steps to ensure the stocks of these vaccines are procured and supplied as a matter of urgency and emergency. The Ghana Health Service has developed an elaborate program to catch up on children who have missed their vaccine immediately stocks arrive. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage all parents and caregivers to ensure that eligible children are vaccinated once this program begins. No child should be denied access to vaccination. Mercifully, so far, not a single child has died as a result of the outbreak.
Well, as you know, this has been a subject of some great controversy. I want to bring in Kwame Sapona-Sedu, is a Democracy and Development Fellow with the Center for Democratic Development, responsible for health, and joins us on the telephone line right now. We'll speak to Mensah Kando, who is the ranking on the Health Committee in Parliament. Kwame, thank you for your time here on Newsnight. And the President today finally also, added his voice to this raging crisis. We've heard from the Director General of the Ghana Health Service. He says the vaccines will be ready, available in 2 weeks. Then the health minister comes and says in a few weeks. Today, the commander-in-chief himself says we are now procuring the vaccines under emergency measures. Your reaction?
Evans, thank you and good evening. My reaction is scandalized, very scandalized. And I am because wind of these shortages didn't start yesterday. They've been months in coming. There've been anecdotal evidence of these shortages. And if you look critically, it seems as though we've become a firefighting country. We box ourselves into a corner, and then everyone goes into that corner to douse the fire. The president, who is the highest officer of the land, came to speak in a house of records, but was never able to give a clear timeline. What does that tell anybody? We don't know. It's as simple as that. We don't know when the vaccines are arriving. Because the health minister told us that the Director General of Ghana Health Service says 2 weeks. We are almost getting to the 2-week timeline from when he spoke. The health minister comes and says weeks, and the president comes and is blank. We do not have an idea. So we need to start unpicking why don't we have an idea? Because there isn't a global shortage of any of these vaccines. I want to put that on record. There isn't a shortage. Yes, there's a downturn in the uptake of measles vaccines and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean there is a supply glut. There isn't. The problem is that we haven't gone in on time. Why? I don't know. And I say why I don't know because we have a historical extended program of immunization that is acclaimed. So we seem to have always gotten it right when it comes to procurement of these vaccines. So why this time? Is it financial? My suspicion is it is. Because if you remember, the Director General of Ghana Health Service had said that the issue was to do with exchange rate fluctuation. Has that ceased to be the case? I don't know. The other thing that concerns me is that is it the case that they cannot give a clear timeline because this is also piggybacked on the IMF program and we need dollar inflows to be able to pay for the stocks?
I mean,
don't know.
The president didn't give specifics about the funding gap, if there is any. However, yesterday the health minister was clear that they have made payments and they've made it on time as they received it from the National Health Insurance Authority.
Yes, but Evans, therein lies the problem. If you look at what the health minister said, you realize that the payments went in bits and pieces. And you have to realize that anytime we pay, because these vaccines are priced in dollars, we have to go with the exchange rate of the cedi to the dollar. So we end up paying more cedis for less dollars and therefore less stock of vaccines received. Does that not tell you that the budgeted amount of vaccines we intended to buy, if we got our forecast right, cannot be bought? And therefore, we have a shortfall anyway, based on the fact that the money in our budget is not enough because of exchange rate depreciation. That is something that we all need to unpick. And that is why I'm saying that we need to come clean and try and understand why this has happened to us and find a way of preventing it from happening again.
Well, another key issue still related to vaccines and other virus is the COVID-19 funds that we got and how we expended it. I know you've been very critical on the wake of the Auditor General's revelations. Today, the President in the State of the Nation address addressed that too. I want to listen to what he said about how the funds were used at the height of the pandemic.
The economic consequences from the pandemic have been devastating. Mr. Speaker, it is precisely because the economic fallout from the pandemic is so widespread and long-lasting that it is important to show clearly that the COVID-19 funds, COVID funds, were not misused. It is critical that we do not lose the confidence of the people that a crisis that they were led to believe we were all in together was abused for personal gain. Mr. Speaker, it was government that asked for the COVID funds to be audited, and I can assure this House that nothing dishonorable was done with the COVID funds. The responses from the Ministers for Health and Finance on January 23rd and 25th, 2023, respectfully, have sufficiently laid to rest the queries from the Auditor General's report. And I believe any objective scrutiny of these statements from the Health and Finance Ministries would justify this conclusion.
Can I say this up on your reaction to that?
Isn't that laughable? I'll tell you why it's laughable. So, is it trying to tell us that when the Auditor General was doing the audit, the third Minister of Finance and the third Minister of Health were not giving an opportunity, or their ensigns and acolytes were not given the opportunity to respond, and that the Auditor General wrote a report unilaterally and put it out, only for them to issue statements that we have to single-handedly believe? Is that what we are being made to believe as a democracy? Where the Auditor General is the only one mandated to independently audit public funds and tell us whether they've been used prudently or not. When that has happened, it has to go to the Public Accounts Committee, who have to sit and review these things. Has that happened? The President is even pronouncing judgment before the Public Accounts Committee has sat. This is someone who was a former member of Parliament, who knows the ropes of the game. Yeah, clearly,
but the monies were spent under his authority, and he has a right to state his innocence, even before the adjudicating body, which is the Public Accounts Committee, looks into the matter.
No, he has the right to state his innocence, granted, but when the Auditor General has spoken, when there are processes that allow you to exonerate yourself, isn't it prudent that you allow the processes to be exhausted? As a believer in our constitutional democracy, if we all had the right to exonerate ourselves, would that not lead to lawlessness? If a matter is why is it that when a matter is before a court, for example, they say that you don't comment on the substantive matter lest you may be in contempt of court. How can the president be clearing people even before the Public Accounts Committee when serious, egregious facts are in the Auditor General's report that have to be perused by the Public Accounts Committee? And don't let us forget, there is then a parallel investigation by Parliament into how these monies were spent, because they are certain monies that were not audited by the Auditor General. How can the president come and tell us that by his mouth and his unilateral fiat, nothing went amiss? Why do we do this to ourselves? Sometimes I ask myself, why do we do this to ourselves? Why have we become a country where we just want to brush everything under the carpet? And we always want to firefight and behave as though nothing goes wrong, and that this government has all squeaky clean operatives. Nobody is in there that actually does anything wrong.
Mr. Ponsiru, thank you very much. He is the health lead with the Center for Democratic Development, responsible for democracy and development. He's a development and democracy fellow, responsible for health at the CDD. Thanks for your thoughts there on the subject. And as you may have noticed, the president began his State of the Nation by indicating that he will focus almost exclusively on the economy because of the current economic crisis the country is in, and the ambition to get an IMF executive board approval by the end of this particular month. And he was very confident that Ghana will get that executive board approval by the end of this month, but also detailed that they're making progress now and that the Chinese are now cooperating, and also very happy with the domestic debt exchange. I want to quickly bring in, you've had the two political parties debate this on Top Story. Let's get an independent view on what the president said today pretty quickly. I want to bring in Professor Godfred Bokwe, who is joining us right now on the telephone line. Prof, I'm grateful that you could join us on Newsnight. And Prof, by the way, is an economist and professor of finance with the University of Ghana. Prof, you may have paid attention to the president. I hope you did. And give me your verdict on his economic assessment. Yes, he agrees we are in a crisis. Yes, he agrees he's borrowed quite heavily, but he says he didn't borrow recklessly. He was also confident that the IMF deal will be closed by the end of this particular month. Your reaction?
Yeah, thank you very much, Evans, and good evening to our cherished listeners. Well, yes, of course, we also agree with the president that we are in the economic crisis. If there's a word beyond crisis, we would have used that to describe Ghana. So we are with him on that same page. We are with him on the page that we needed an IMF program. Remember, we made this call much earlier. It was a failure of government to act proactively, and the optimal time for the president to have made a call to the IMF was the third quarter of 2021, when the market kicked us out of the Eurobond market when we were looking for funding in the third quarter of 2021. It was a delay of government, and essentially a reflection of pride and lack of appreciation of the reality on the ground that has brought us here. And let's put on record, whilst we agree with the president that we are in an economic mess, we disagree with the president on what has brought us here. And this is where Ghana's immaturity shows up again. After 66 years of independence, we are unable to admit wrongdoing and own up as responsible adults who are capable of managing our own country. And that is unfortunate. It's not only this government. If you look at the narrative from 1992 across the two major political parties, it is as though the marking scheme is blame it on others, don't admit wrongdoing.
And I'm pretty sure you're referring to the time he spent detailing why the crisis is because of the Ukraine and the pandemic. And he spent quite a bit of time detailing this. But isn't it factual that Ukraine and the pandemic had an impact on the economy?
Nobody can run away from that. And actually, and if you highlight that so much, that is a poor diagnosis of the current drivers of the crisis. It's as though you are majoring on the minor. And the reason we are saying is that the Russia-Ukraine is a global issue. The impact is pervasive. COVID-19 is a pandemic. The impact is pervasive. But you also see marginality in how countries were affected by these two or these twin developments. It is in the level of the marginality that you are able to see differences in the resilience of one economy compared to the other economy. So it takes shocks of this global proportion to reveal local vulnerabilities, so that you see economies that are sustained by words and propaganda and the ones that are real on the ground. So when pandemics of this nature strike, that is where you see countries that have pursued good and sound policies over the years, underpinning the resilience of their economy, and the other countries that have been a bit shambolic and more sustain their economy through propaganda. We all agree with the president that the economic fundamentals were relatively better from 2017, 2018, up to essentially towards the end of the IMF program and all of that. So, and if you look at the period within which these fundamentals started improving, we were under the guidance and supervision and the direction of the IMF. When we exited the IMF program, April 2019, effectively, and with all the issues resolved around it towards the end of the year, then COVID struck. Guess what? Ghana, unlike many other countries, decided to monetize the virus. Ghana took advantage of the virus to mess up. In the name of COVID, we overspent, actually, trying to win over electorate in 2020 election. Evans, if you look at the data in terms of fiscal slippages in 2020, Ghana's own stands out, even in comparison to our regional peers, our structural peers, and our aspirational peers. Whilst Cote d'Ivoire and the others were running deficit in the same COVID year of less than 10%, far less than 10%, Ghana did in excess of 15%. How do you explain this?
Let me ask you, Prof, finally. This was supposed to be the state of the nation. Did the president's recounting of the state of this nation, did it reflect the reality? What's your verdict on that?
It didn't. What you see and the excessive time the president gave to blaming Russia, Ukraine, and COVID for all that has happened is that it's coming across to me that the president is getting the pressure. And even though in the last couple of months, they have used every available means to sell a storyline to Ghanaians that they were not at fault, it was Russia, Ukraine, and COVID, that story is not sinking in. It's as simple as that. So let's move on.
Prof, I'm grateful that you joined us. Just because of time, we'll have to wrap it up here. And Prof will join me on PM Express as well as we get into the heart of some of the things that were said. There's a lot that we need to unpack for you tonight at 9 p.m. So please join us then. Still listen to News 90s on Joy 99.7 FM. And I want to take you to Ashaiman, where there has been widespread condemnation of the military's invasion of that township, a suburb of the Greater Accra region, where 184 suspects have been picked up by the military police following the killing of a 21-year-old soldier, Sharif Imoro. Now, the Ministry of Defense is tonight apologizing for the brutalities meted out to the civilians in Ashaiman. We will hear from the Deputy Defense Minister shortly, but my colleague Kojo Braze has been spending some time in Ashaiman and came through with this report.
In multiple viral videos, soldiers are seen beating some persons said to be resident of Ashaiman. In one of such videos, 5 persons are lying in a pool of water. A soldier with a gun hanging around his waist wields a stick and walks around them. One of the persons in the water attempts to rise up and is immediately hit with a stick. 2 others, who also try to stand up, receive beating as well. At Ashaiman official town, I meet some residents who say they were picked up from their homes and beaten.
I was just indoor when a lady in my house shouted, "Obin Jimmy," So we came out, tried to find out what is happening. So immediately we came out, gun is being pointed at us, and they asked us to lie down. So as in the process of lying down, they start hitting us with wire, wood log, and metallics and stuff. From there, they march us from the house to the street, to sleep on the street, to roll.
Before I know, there's a military man standing there. And when I saw these people were lying on the day, then they said I should come. So the time he knocked the door, he go and hide so that you will not see her. So then they said I should come. So they said, what am I doing here? So I am working here. I'm working with this company. And they did not even allow me to say anything. They started beating us. Beat us, let us roll on the ground from the house. Then they brought us here, 3 of us.
Well, that's a report there filed by my colleague Kojo Brace. Well, the Deputy Defense Minister has been apologizing for the excesses. I've been speaking to him on PM Express. Listen to Kofi Amankwamenu.
I think that it is only proper that we admit when there are excesses. And in operations of this nature, you may get 1 or 2 people who may get carried away. And so, if decent, innocent residents of Ashaman were caught up in this and these operations, I, in my capacity as the Deputy Defense Minister, will want to apologize for that. That, of course, we will apologize. But, my brother, we are not going to apologize for the operations.
Okay, so he will apologize for the deployment, but will apologize for the excesses. The Member of Parliament, who has been very upset about the situation, has already been pushing for a parliamentary probe into the matter. Ernest Nogbe joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Nogbe, do you accept the apology?
Well, yeah, that's my colleague. He is apologizing on his behalf, on his own behalf, in his capacity as a deputy minister, but not the government. What we are demanding is the apology from the government. But for him, as a colleague, and I accept his apology at this time, but not that of the. I'm not sure he is apologizing on behalf of the government.
Yeah, but as he says, my capacity as a deputy minister. As a deputy minister, he acts under the authority of the
When you
president.
listen to him carefully and even his statement, he said in his capacity as a deputy minister, he would apologize, but the government would not. If you read the statement carefully, you will see that. And so I'm not sure he's apologizing on behalf of the government. Even right now on your station, he said it, that for that he will apologize, but the government will not apologize for anything.
Let me ask you, yesterday you were looking for 72 at that time of the people who have been picked up. We now know the number is significantly more. Have you found them? Where are they? The military says
yeah, they are. Yesterday I made frantic efforts to get them. So I went to Bemakap and I was able to speak to the officers there. As at yesterday till this morning, they released some of them, and this afternoon when I went there again, I was told a total of 150 of them were released, and we are left with about 30 there. And according to them, they found some narcotics on some of them, so they are still doing further screening, and that is where we are now. As I speak with you, I'm at a meeting with the whole community. I've gathered them at one place, talking to them to remain calm whilst we, the leaders, take charge of what has happened to them yesterday. And nobody should take the law into his or her own hands. And the leaders in the community, myself, we are working on it, and we are championing for their rights to be restored.
Do they have access to a lawyer? Have you found a lawyer for them?
Yes, I found a lawyer. We have lawyers. So many lawyers who volunteer to champion their case for them. And so tomorrow we are going to hold a press conference, a strong-worded press conference, demanding for certain compensations for them, after which we'll give ultimatum, after which we're going to proceed to Shraj. If that compensation package does not work, we'll proceed to Shraj and even to the law court. And we are going to explore all other avenues for them to be compensated.
Thank you very much. And there's Nogbe is a member of parliament for Ashaiman there. Let's bring in law lecturer at the University of Ghana School of Law, Professor Kweju Appiah, who has written extensively about this today. He joins us on the line. Prof, thanks for your time here on Newsnight.
Thank you for having me.
So, What happened yesterday? Do these individuals have any right to redress, and have there been any violation of our constitutional laws?
Yes, certainly there have been serious violations of the Constitution. Article 5 of our Constitution clearly spells out the fundamental rights and freedoms that we enjoy as citizens, and even for residents who live in the country. And it places a duty on the state, all the organs of the state, the executive, the judiciary, and then the legislature, and the other ministries and departments and so on, that they have a responsibility to uphold the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution. And beyond that, all the international human rights treaties that we are parties to also place a responsibility on the government to protect the rights of the people. A number of violations have taken place. We're talking about the fact that you are supposed to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. By brutalizing those people, which is quite unprofessional and barbaric, it violates their right to that freedom, that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Secondly, the use of swoops to arrest people who are alleged to have committed offenses has long gone away in practices by police officers or police services in various countries, which relies on intelligence gathering operations, which rely on community policing, democratic policing. And these are exactly the opposite of what the military did. So you talk about the right to protect the dignity of the human person, allowing people to wallow in water and some in gutters and so on. It's just a serious act of savagery and unprofessionalism on the part of the military.
What redress do these people have, though?
The redress that people have is to collect, we are trying to collect information for people to go to SHAS. SHAS has a stake in this. And SHAS should have taken this matter on its own, but for the fact that it has been stopped from doing so. So a case has to be made to SHAS, and SHAS will investigate. That is one avenue. The other avenue is the law courts. We have a human rights court, which is another avenue that those who have been victimized and brutalized can go to seek redress for the violations. It is not enough for the minister to just issue that kind of apology, which is insensitive, and in fact, a reckless form of apology, and to say that the things should be as it is because the military command has the power to conduct that swoop. So it is important that compensation becomes a very important issue, and it's not only that. People who have been traumatized, they need to have psychological counseling to have the assurance that such barbarity will not be perpetrated on them. And it is important that they recognize that they have not done anything wrong. It is the police that has been prevented from doing its job. It is the military that has usurped the powers of the police. And this has resulted in the situation we are in today. So some form of psychological counseling is also critical to be given to these people who have been victims of this.
Thank you very much, Prof. Professor Kojo PJ. TI is a law lecturer at the University of Ghana School of Law. And in the last few minutes, the former President John Mahama has issued a statement on this. What is he saying?
Well, he says he understands how such deaths affect the military by his advising the military to exercise restraints in this and allow due process to take its course. It says that it's important for us to douse the inflammatory conditions that have been set right now in Ashaiman, for the military and the people of Ashaiman to live in harmony.
Marcel, thank you very much. After business, the NDC directive causing a stir in Parliament as NDC MPs endorse the party's order asking them not to absent themselves from Parliament as they ready themselves for a crucial time in the House.
Parliament remains the last hope in that bastion of democracy. And so we are going to sacrifice our campaigns.
And mark my words, we are saying any means in this chamber to make sure that nothing obnoxious will be allowed to pass through the House.
And then later, Accra Metropolitan Assembly says it is worried more households are without toilets nearly 6 years after it made it compulsory.
Then to interest you, for you to know that in 2022, it reduces from 89% to 77%. What happened? Is it that some people have turned their toilet facilities into a living room for rent, or what? That is what we want to find out.
And if you're contemplating constructing a toilet in your house, the AMA has some numbers for you to crunch on.
So if you have 5 children in your house, including you 6, and a day, everybody goes to toilet, 1 CD, 50, spending about 40 CDs, 50 CDs a day, multiply it by a month, by a year, you see the amount of money.
Cash, and the man who talks about cash. George, your affairs here. George, the business of toilets.
You know, interestingly, when there's a new political new government takes over, the whole issue about these KVIPs and takeover, it's a big issue.
Oh my God! You just reminded me of something. The time was when presidents used to commission KVIP.
Yeah,
big deal.
You know, and the HIPIC benefits. You know, it's interesting. So, I mean, how can you put together or build a house and there's no private place of convenience? You know?
Yeah, please, you have to be careful, because where I lived and I came from another bracket, it was a norm.
5 penna.
Yeah. What's in the headline?
Well,
Joe?
coming up, government targets submission of Ghana's program request for IMF approval by end of month. But is this a change in timelines? Well, Talu Oil returns to Winiways as profits reaches over $1 billion ending December last year. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, government has indicated that it is working to submit its economic program to the IMF for board approval by the end of this month. President Akufo-Addo disclosed this when he addressed Parliament on the State of the Nation address. Now, could this be a departure from the earlier comment of getting a program approved by the end of March this year? Well, the president noted that they are hopeful of securing a program on time.
Having reached a staff level agreement on 12 December 2022, after 5 months of intense negotiation and completion of most of the prior actions required under the agreement, we are on course for the IMF staff to present to the IMF Executive Board Ghana's program request for a $3 billion extended credit facility by the end of this month. Mr. Speaker, the 3-year IMF program, anchored on government's post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, aims at restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability whilst protecting the vulnerable. It is a strong reform program which relies on front-loaded fiscal measures to increase domestic resource mobilization.
The president also announced that government will soon roll out some fresh policy measures that would help boost local production and help cut the country's imports. Meanwhile, economist Dr. Priscilla Chumisi-Bafwa believes that the international creditors will come on board to ensure the country secures the IMF program on time.
The elephant in the room has been what would be the Chinese position, because significantly they own a chunk of our external debts. And so it is important that we are able to get some sort of commitment for our external debtors to come out with a statement to support us so that the country gets on board an IMF program. And within this, the president also acknowledges that indeed fiscal reforms and structural reforms are not enough. And then when you look at it, you can tell that that is why he's also pushing for essentially the passage of these tax bills to be able to increase our revenue mobilization in the country. But for me, I think that what was missing in the president's speech, which he indicated, it's sort of an admission of the fact that, yes, government also needs to take some responsibility with regards to where the nation is at the moment. And I don't think I found that in the speech overall.
Economist Dr. Priscilla Chumisi-Bafwa. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana is expected to hold its second meeting for this year to review the health of the economy from March 22 to 24th of this year. Now, the meetings will conclude the press conference that is on March 27 to announce the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee. Now, some will say that some of the issues that will dominate the discussions will be whether extra measures again should be taken to help stabilize the Ghana cedi, and also what should be done on the banking front to support the commercial banks in the country that have been hit badly by the domestic debt exchange program. Two other stories, and Talo ended last year posting some significant growth in its profits. Now, this might be described as returning to winning ways after posting a loss in 2021. There's more in this report.
The statements show that profit before tax reached a little over $1 billion ending December last year. This was up from the $647 million posted in 2021. A careful examination of the report also showed that the oil exploration firm has returned to posting profits. This is because ending December 2022, profits after tax stood at $49 million, coming from the over $80 million loss posted in 2021. Revenue, on the other hand, stood at $1.7 billion, up from the $1.2 billion recorded in 2021. Tullow Oil also spoke about some significant progress made on drillings on the Jubilee oil field as well as the 10 fields. The oil exploration firm also announced that it has made some significant progress on time taking processed crude oil on the Jubilee oil field. Tullow Oil is also targeting average production to reach over 100,000 barrels per day, with 4 new wells expected to come on board before end of year.
That is a business desk report. Now, the Ghana Stock Exchange says it is hoping to see more women-owned businesses invest in its gender bond to help grow, that is, the underserved women-led businesses in the country. According to the managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abdullah Moa, the exchange is ready to help women, especially in the small and medium-sized sector, to raise capital and expand their businesses. Now, speaking to Joy Business as an event to mark the International Women's Day, Abuamwa appealed to businesswomen to consider investing in the various bonds on the local market.
Top of mind for us is that we want to see green bonds, of gender bonds. Gender bonds will be capital that is raised to invest in either a largely female-owned and run business or a business that is serving the needs of this underserved sector. Anything doing things that will promote more gender inclusion. So the market is ready, and we are calling on issuers to come and issue these products. We want more women-owned businesses to come to our market and raise capital. We set up the Ghana Alternative Market in 2015 to help the SME sector. In Ghana, women dominate the ownership of many of these SME businesses. We want to have 100 GACS companies, many of them female-owned, female-run, on the GACS market, raising some capital to expand and grow their businesses.
Abdamwa is the managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange. To the stock market, if you're an investor in shares of Guel today, you lost a peswa, and it's now worth 1 Ghana cedi, 64 pesos. That's all for business on Newsnight and Events. Indeed, celebrating all those wonderful women out there. We don't know what we could have done without them in terms of international,
including Professor Chumesi Bafo, who's
excellent economist.
And she makes the point about one of the things that she says the president did not say, which is the government's own contribution to dealing with the current economic crisis. And you remember that the German ambassador to Ghana had actually gone a step further to suggest that the government should cut the size. Today, the president, during the State of the Nation address, delivered this sarcastic jab.
Today, we live in a country in which we enjoy complete freedom of expression, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and political affiliation. Indeed, freedom of speech has now reached such heights that even members of the diplomatic corps feel able to join in our national discourse. and pronounce on matters that will be problematic for Ghanaian diplomats in their countries of origin.
President Akufo-Addo on the floor of Parliament there. Now, talking about the floor of Parliament, the National Democratic Congress has tonight ordered all its sitting MPs to suspend immediately all campaigns in their constituencies. The party has also further ordered the sitting MPs to attend all parliamentary sittings. In fact, even MPs who are currently out of the country have been ordered to return immediately. And MPs shall also will not also undertake any travel that will affect his or her attendance in Parliament. And this is part of the party's fight against what they call the obnoxious constitutional instrument that the Electoral Commission is seeking to lay before Parliament that will make the Ghana card the sole identity document for registering to vote. Well, some of the NDC members of Parliament have been reacting to this in Parliament today.
When we are on break, we can work in our constituencies. Currently, we have serious businesses on the floor. As a whip, I'm struggling to whip my colleagues to be in the chamber and to prosecute government business. The way to do it is to make it easier for colleagues to stay in the chamber. The party feels the way to do it is to stop some of the disturbances in their backyard so that they can focus on the work here. And when we go on recess, then we can all go back and do whatever is required.
The party has suspended campaigns. It appears there's something big that the party is expecting to happen on the floor. What big issues are coming up?
Nothing big, just to make sure that members of parliament as elected remain on the floor and do what is required of members of parliament.
We called it what? Operation Save Democracy. So our democracy is under threat with an electoral commission that is rogue, that has gone rogue, and an electoral commissioner who has become a teen god and thinks that she's the best thing to happen to Ghanaians since Ben's bread, and who thinks that she can run riots in this country and do whatever she wants because she has the blessings of a president who is ruling like a despot. But Parliament remains the last bastion of democracy, and the minority in Parliament remains the last hope in that bastion of democracy. And so we are going to sacrifice our campaigns as members of Parliament for our re-election in our party.
So that's Sam George there, and he is a member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram. Earlier you had the minority chief whip there. I want to bring in the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande, joins us on the line now. Mustafa, so is it right to assume that this order that you've issued is solely because of the CI, the Electoral Commission is seeking to lay?
Thank you very much, and Evans, good evening to your cherished listeners. I believe that, one, the party have just placed Ghana above our internal activities. Ghana's democracy is very important for us. Protect and fundamental respect for human rights is very important. To the NDC, a party that have laid and respected and also nurtured the democracy of this country. Evans, among other things, what to be more fundamental, that you have a government that takes people's rights for granted. You have a president who decides that he speaks about rule of law and disrespect same. You speak about a president, you talk about a president who speaks about fundamental respect for human rights and disregard same. Evans, the Electoral Commission has a very simple civic responsibility for the people of Ghana. One, to ensure that Ghana undertakes free, transparent, and fair elections. In what state do you see a government in cahoot with Electoral Commission to rig the will of the people?
Yeah, I mean, but there's no evidence. There's no evidence.
Lack of performance, out of their fear of failure to govern the
but Mustafa,
country.
there's no evidence that there's collusion, and there's no evidence of
There
potential
is a
rigging.
constitutional collusion. There is a fundamental violation of the constitutional rights of citizens of Ghana. Evans, Article 45 of the Constitution is very clear. Article 35(3) of the Constitution is very clear that the government of Ghana has to provide just access of public service to all citizens. Even as we speak, the offices of the National Identification Authority in the various districts are not working. As we speak, Ghanaians who have attained 18 years cannot have a Ghana card, let alone the law requiring the EC to have conducted continuous registration to be able to capture people who have attained the age of 18 in line with Article 45E of the Constitution.
In Parliament last week, the EC says that this will happen and once the monies have been released, which was confirmed on the floor as well. Let me ask you briefly because of time. So this order, when does it elapse? When can the MPs get a free hand to travel and go and campaign?
The order, the directive is very clear that as much as government will continue to sneak in illegal CIs and other deals in Parliament, we will always place the interests of Ghanaians first. We are willing to postpone, if we have to take our reorganization to be postponed, we are willing to do that. But for now, we are going to lay ambush to wait for this government to ensure they don't pass the CI by making sure that members of Parliament are in the House.
Okay. Mustafa, I'm grateful that you joined us. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Ms. Bao is here with sports. Hello, Ms. Bao.
Yes, well, Evans, after Chelsea's big win against Dortmund yesterday night at Stamford Bridge, tonight is the 10 of Paris Saint-Germain will be looking to overturn the 1-0 deficit they suffered at the hands of Bayern Munich some few weeks ago. So it's a big game coming up at 8 p.m. Full commentary is going to be here on Joy 99.7 FM. And already the lineups are out. And Lionel Messi and Kylian Mbappe are in the starting lineup for Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, Neymar is the one who will not be featuring after he picked up an injury, which is going to keep him off till the end of the season. So events 8 p.m. Full commentary here. Bayern Munich versus PSG.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bao. It's time to join the Clean Ghana campaign train. And the Accra Metropolitan Assembly says it's worried that many households still do not have toilets. Well, the Clean Ghana train stopped in Ghana, where most households were found to be without toilets. Michael Ashali has more.
When you visit public toilet, you pay how much? 1 cedi. 1 cedi, 50 pesos. So if you have 10 children in your room a day, how much are you spending? Over 40 cedis. So if you are able to gather all these monies, and you get a toilet in this house, that money you use to go and pay at the public toilet, you use it to do another something.
In this episode of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, environmental health officers of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly inspect households in the Ghana community for clean toilet facilities.
Do you have a toilet facility in this house?
No, toilet there, we don't have some. We have the public one.
You have public toilet. Yeah. Do you know that public toilet is not for your house?
But
yes.
We are not
what
ready.
we want you to do is, don't say you've not made ready. As for the toilet, everybody must make ready for a toilet in your house.
But landlord, will you build a toilet?
I'm ready. We have a place to build a toilet. Even when the sister comes, if I give this to them, the toilet will come now. If I come there, half of it, me to power me, I will get profit on it. Then you see.
So you're not going to sell it all. I'm not. The toilet that will be in the house. Here. Don't say you get profit.
In this area, each household has at least 5 rooms, and each room is occupied by at least 3 individuals. Quickly, the team led by the Director of Environmental Health and Sanitation at the AMA, Florence Kuchi, concluded that a majority of the households in the area did not have toilet facilities.
So since you are living in a house, your landlord have rented a house for you and there's no toilet and you are living in, we are giving your landlady a summons, a notice to provide a toilet for this house.
In the absence of their own facilities, they resort to public toilets, but sometimes they ease themselves in open drains. In 2017, the AMA passed the Sanitation and Pollution Control Bylaw, which mandates every household to have at least 1 toilet facility or face legal action. The target had been exceeded. Since then, Florence Kuchi says the rate had slowed down and it was becoming a worry to the Assembly.
In 2020, it was increased to 64%. Then in 2021, it shot up to 89%. Then to interest you, for you to know that in 2022, it reduces from 89% to 77%. What happened? Is it that something is not working?
Well, that's a story in Ghana, and it was a story when I was growing up in Adabraka as well. Yeah, well, that's the reality for many people in the capital and across the country. That's it for Newsnight tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Happy International Women's Day, people. And guess who is taking up next? That woman, that powerful, strong woman with a lot of verve and energy, and her team of strong and